right, welcome everyone. We're going to get started in just a moment. Dawn, thank you so much for that beautiful tribute to Vicente Fernandez, who passed away yesterday at the age of 81. Andratesha, do we have you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, all right. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for part 3 of Designing Inclusive Preschools, presented by author and brilliant educator Andratesha Fritzgerald. I'm Janelle Mercado, project coordinator with the Supporting Inclusive Practices Project, and on behalf of Kristen Brooks, executive director, and co-director Kevin Schaefer, our teams out of both Riverside County and El Dorado counties and the California Department of Education, we are so glad that you could participate with us this afternoon. We have many participants on the line with us, so we would like to invite you to participate in the chat or the Q&A features. We have team members who will be monitoring throughout. And if you miss any portion of today's presentation or the presentation on Thursday, you will receive a link to the recording and related resources in a follow-up email. So check your emails. We sent them to the email addresses that you registered with. If you do not receive the email, look at your junk or your spam folders because they should come through in the next 24 hours. So in addition to that, a Padlet link is being dropped in the chat right now. For you, it contains the session's materials and related resources. So you will find a link to an interactive presentation or interactive slides that Andratesha will be referencing. So either open up those interactive slides in a separate window or have that Padlet link handy so that when Andratesha references it, you'll be able to access the activities. We will be sure to add the Padlet link to the chat a few times throughout this session in case it gets lost in the chat box. So with that, we have your brilliant presenter, Andratesha.
Thank you, Janelle. I'm going to take you with me everywhere I go.
I'd be happy to.
So grateful to be here with each of you. Thank you for making the time in your day just to come together and really think through what inclusive preschools can look like. And we get to turn these dreams into reality with our designs. And so as we design to partner with families for delivery, today we'll get to think about where we are and where we want to go. And so as Janelle referenced, these slides are available. I used Pear Deck in order to give you an opportunity to interact with the slides if that is a support you need. Also, you could take this presentation in simply by using the screen that is available here on the Zoom and the chat. If you have questions at any time throughout, please put those in the Q&A, and at the end or at an appropriate time during the session, we'll pause and make sure that we answer those. So as you're listening, experiencing, watching, make sure that if a question pops up, maybe other people are thinking that question too, or you may open up to a whole new world. So even if it is a question relative to something that we've discussed in session 1 or session 2, or session 3 is your first time here, you are in the right place. 100% of who you are and what you know and what you don't know, what you struggle with and what you're a rock star at is welcome here today. So we appreciate you. In that Padlet, you'll find resources for you to explore, to learn more about that are connected to today's topic. You'll also find the video and resources and slides from the first 2 sessions. And so we are just happy to give you multiple on-ramps for your interest. And tonight, we'll talk more about partnership with families for delivering on this dream of inclusive preschools that we have the power to make reality. So today's session is to understand why UDL is necessary to give all parents an equal opportunity to participate fully in their child's education. For us to realize that we can break down some barriers to have parents as full partners. And then we'll develop an anti-racist UDL approach for home to school collaboration by recognizing, reducing, and eliminating barriers. Our agenda will be the what, why, and how for home to school collaboration, some engagement and pictures, some remixing of traditions, and the last item on the agenda is seeds for growth. So as we start each session, and I'm going to make sure that I can see the chat up here, or you can use the interactive slides. I want you to just evaluate yourself. Take a moment to be present with you and assess how ready are you for learning. The picture on the left here, that would be a 0, totally unfocused and ready, like my brain is here, but my body is not. My body is here, but my brain is not. See, there we are. In that little foggy area, and totally focused and ready for learning. I know what I need and I have everything and I'm ready to go, would be a 5. So from 0 to 5, go ahead and rate yourself. Where do you fall today? We've got some 4s, some 3s. Thanks for those who jumped in. This is ritual and routine in action. When people know what to expect, it takes the anxiety down. It's part of the design to build community. You know what we do here. And so if you're joining us for the first time, this is something that we do at the beginning of each session, just to check in with ourselves and see, what do you need? And so no judgment if you're at a -3 or a 5+. Wherever you are, I want you to take the next 15 seconds. What could I do to move myself a little bit closer to 5 or beyond 5 if I'm already there? Maybe I need to tidy up my area. Maybe I need to close a couple of tabs in the background, maybe send that last text message so that I can focus. Maybe I need to pull out a paper and ink pen and just sketch the notes. Maybe I need to open another Google Doc to just write down what I want to capture. So take the next 15 seconds without the sound of my voice to personalize your learning environment. Whatever it is that you need to do, stand, sit, grab some water or snacks, whatever you need to do, take the next 15 seconds to personalize your learning environment. Go. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you all for taking that invitation. And throughout the session, I want you to take the space that you need to be well. If you need to stand, if you need to sit, if you need to pull up the interactive slides so that you can move forward or back, or if you want to just take it in through the screen just like this and type in the chat. If you have questions that pop up while we're going through, please feel free to type those in the Q&A and we will get to those today. And so here are some pictures as we think about our learning goals together. We will identify some obstacles or barriers to that parental engagement. We'll identify the dreams that we have for all parents. And I want you to think about whatever your dream location is. Mine will be somewhere on the beach. It's not beachy at all here in Cleveland, Ohio. In fact, the sun has come out to play a little peekaboo today, but it's been a few days since we've seen it. I want you to build a bridge from theory to practice. And as you're building that bridge, I want you to create opportunity for yourself and others to try and apply and learn more. So I want you to think about the learning goals of the session. And as we think about home to school collaboration or designing to partner with families for delivery, what do you wonder about today's topic? And you can go ahead and type in the chat, what do you wonder about today's topic? Or you can use the interactive slides. I'll pop over just to see if there are any of you in there. We have about 15 or 16 people in the interactive slide. So go ahead and type your response either in the chat or in the interactive slide. What do you wonder about designing to partner with families for delivery? Thank you, Saad. How can make a better teacher for my students? Effective ways to communicate, how to get families to commit to the process. What do I need to do to get parents to participate in their child's education? How to mix traditions. What do parents really want? Working with families. New ideas. What supports do they need and how to provide them? How to connect with families. Thank you. Working with families of infants and toddlers and how similar and different it is to preschool. Thank you. find better ways to communicate with parents, and language to use to have parents participate more in their child's education. Thank you all so much for your comments, how to continue this work and make it not entirely reliant on a single individual. Awesome. So thank you. Thank you. I'm looking back and forth between the interactive slides and the Zoom chat. So thank you all. And as you wonder, feel free to keep adding those wonderings. If you come up with questions that you really want answered, make sure you place those in the Q&A. This is our time to really build together. And so I want you to think about this topic, dream together about this topic, and then we'll walk through the session and come back together. So just as a teaser, I want to just put out there, how did Cardi B help a school district strengthen home to school collaboration? And I bet that's going to pique some curiosity. And I will tell you more about that if you stay tuned. Remember these TVs, the big floor model? In our last session, we talked about this wheel of power and privilege. And as we think about home to school collaboration, there are some assumptions, some biases, some prejudices that we are operating on when we think about parents, what they know and what they want. And so this wheel of power and privilege is an image that we've used in session 1 and session 2. And I brought it back for session 3 so that we can think about how marginalization pushes parents away from the school community. And when we think about this notion of power and privilege, if we don't disrupt the cycle, the traditions, then the power circle will be the ones making the decisions and the marginalized will stay there unless we change, unless we design differently to make sure that each member of the community has a chance to make decisions for themselves and exercise the power that each member of the learning community brings into the setting. And so I want you to think about these two words, empowerment and engagement. And today I want to talk to you about empowerment and engagement. Many times when we talk about families, we talk about families in terms of engagement. And when we think about engagement in the school setting, we think about the fact that when parents are present, that they are engaged, and we kind of check it off. And sometimes we set these baseline goals that, if a parent comes to parent-teacher conference, then they're engaged. Or if they sign off on those tear-off sheets and send it back to school, then they're engaged. Or if they show up at the programs to see their children sing, then they're engaged. And so what happens if we move from a model of parent engagement, where simply be present when we tell you to, and then we'll give you a check plus a sticker or a star, and really empowering families? And so while presence is a part of engagement, it's definitely not the ultimate goal when it comes to measuring the impact and the approach that we use to impact academic achievement. And so UDL, Universal Design for Learning, is a strategy that we've thought about when we think about early childhood, when we think about how do we reach students, how do we design instruction. But we also have to think about UDL from the viewpoint of how do we reach, empower, engage families in the home to school collaboration. And so this is shared strategic empowerment, not just simply checking a box, adding a plus, or giving a sticker. And so the way that I think about empowerment is kind of like this picture that is shown, and I'm going to describe it for you. This is a lifeguard station, and there is a ladder that leads to a platform that is right by the water. And empowerment is changing the vantage point to an advantage point. And so it's not simply just moving parents from one point to another, but giving them an opportunity to make decisions for themselves, so that being involved and being empowered gives them an advantage in their children's life, an advantage in the learning of their child, so that they are truly partners for the education process. Is not doing what we need so that the school can reach its goals. That is using, that is not empowerment. that is entanglement. And so what we want to do is empower each parent to be in the driver's seat of the learning, to have input on how we change things or how we design, to be a part of that process, even from the earliest age, from the toddlers, from the preschool students and early childhood. We want parents to be an integral component to the learning that happens. That means that we place ourselves in a position to honor families by asking, by seeking, and by listening to what it is they want to share with us. Changing the vantage point to an advantage point for families. And so you may be familiar with the research for families that are involved, that are really having a decision-making role in their child's education. So there are some benefits of family and school collaboration. Of course, there are research from Garcia and Thornton shared that there's positive gains in student achievement from parents who are truly involved, intricately woven into the school fiber. There's an increase in attendance. There is an improvement in behaviors, higher grades and test scores, and then a command of the social skills, because we are working together as one for the outcomes that both family and school have identified as desirable for the learner. And so ultimately, we can see these benefits and feel like this is what everyone wants, that this, the positive gains, the increase in attendance and the improved behavior, the higher grades and test skills, the command of social skills. But there are some barriers. There are some barriers to this empowerment that we speak of, this true collaboration. And so those barriers really play out when we think about what families need from us, what they want from us, and ultimately how we need to design differently in order to meet families where they are. And so when we think about time as a barrier, parental and family involvement is viewed by parents as one more responsibility, is viewed by educators as, hard to fit into an already full schedule. And so families are busy and they find it difficult to make time to be involved in a way that is meaningful to them. Parents are not interested in taking the little precious time that they have to check off a box just to come to the school for someone to say that they're engaged because they're present. And so we have to think about beliefs. So sometimes there's research that says that teachers believe that parents can't help their children because they have limited educational backgrounds. And so when we think about that wheel of power and privilege, these preconceived notions, these biases that maybe teachers or leaders have about the parents, their beliefs actually limit the interactions between the parents and the schools, because what we believe comes out in our actions, in our words, in our communication, and our decision making. And so the beliefs and attitudes of both family and staff can become barriers or enhancers. And so we need to know, what do families believe about us? And we need to really examine ourselves to see, what do we believe about families? There are teachers who may perceive that parents do not respect them, who may encourage their children to disrespect them. And this was from some research from St. Louis in 2004 that said that families felt disrespected by teachers, and teachers felt devalued by families. And so this belief system, if we ignore it, that's a micro invalidation, where we're saying that we just don't value the viewpoint of the other. But if we are to design differently, then we have to know what the barriers are. So what beliefs are we holding on to about our families? And where are those beliefs rooted in racism or ableism? We have to really examine those beliefs. Next is communication styles. The communication styles can be a barrier. And so when we think about culturally responsive instruction, we also have to think about culturally responsive communication with parents. Sometimes we can have a cultural mismatch in what we send home or what we expect. We use power to say, you need to read with your child 20 minutes a day, or you need to watch educational shows. And instead of honoring families to see, well, what do you watch and how can we learn from you, or what's working for you at home? That communication style then becomes a barrier instead of a linkage from the home to the school and the school to the home. Of course, lack of resources. When we think about parental involvement, we have to design programs where transportation and childcare and time of the program or days of the programs or days to be involved or even have access to teachers. We have to think about the resources that are available to families, particularly in this COVID era, that there may be people who are afraid or who may not be able, maybe medically fragile and not able to come into the school setting. And so we have to think about the resources that are available and not shun families because of the resources, but think about ways to design differently, which we're going to talk about tonight. And last but not least, relational issues. So negative experiences early on for families, for parents, can mar the possibility of a relationship moving forward. So whether real or perceived, sometimes some things that have happened in the past can lead to feelings of unfamiliarity, inadequacy, suspicion, and anger. These are barriers to families and parents and schools partnering together. And so as you think about these barriers, as you think about what is keeping true empowerment with parents and families engaging with the schools, we have to design differently to make sure that each member of the learning community has what they need in order to design differently and engage families. And so universal design for learning is that bridge from barriers to benefits. And we talked about those benefits just a little bit earlier. And then we looked at the barriers. What is keeping our families from truly engaging and being empowered by the school? Are we honoring our families, or are we using power to dictate to them what to do and only tell them what we're doing and not invite them into the process? And so when we think about universal design for learning, it is an instructional strategy, a way to design learning to make sure that all students have access, support, and challenge along the way, and ultimately to create expert learners. But when we limit UDL to just classroom instruction, then we miss the fact that in states and local education agencies that they're embracing UDL in ed tech and curriculum products, that universal design for learning is becoming standard. Professional development, having choice, having closed captions and pictures and words, maybe interactive slides as well as pictures on the screen. This is universal design in professional learning. And then also in research to find out what works best in the presence of barriers. How do we eliminate, mitigate, reduce barriers and so that learning is possible for all? If we do not apply universal design for learning to parental involvement, then we are saying that there's only one kind of parent that can engage, that regardless of the barriers, we're going to do things one way, the way that we've always done them. And that says that we'll use our power not to honor, but to impose upon families and then hold them accountable to a standard that the barriers will not allow them to meet. And so when we use universal design for learning to build that home to school bridge, we must give context. And so I just want to just give you an example of the power of context. If upon entering a room, I said the rules in this room are to dance, and you'll be graded on how you dance. Put a 0 if your anxiety would be through the roof. Put a 1 if you would welcome the challenge, and put a 2 if you would absolutely be in love. So 0 if it's like, no way. 1 if it's like, okay, maybe. And 2 if it was like, I don't care what the music is, you said dancing, I'm in. So 0, 1, and 2. Take a look. So look at the numbers. Each of us has a different relationship with the expectation for dance. What if I said, I'm going to play the music to Thriller, and I would like the dance to just fit the style of the music? How many of you would be a 0? Totally terrified. 1, like, okay, I'm in, no problem. 2, all about it. I saw holla in the chat, okay? And so maybe your number changed. Just having a little more context, knowing, okay, if we're doing a thriller dance, it can't be that serious. I'm not going to Dancing with the Stars. That context helps to alleviate anxiety. Many times when we invite parents to the school, they don't have a context for what their involvement is going to be. And so some parents, based on their past experience, based on what they believe, based on fear, will rather skip it than come to it not knowing what to expect. So are we providing adequate context to alleviate the anxiety and push forward? And so as we talk about universal design for learning, giving context for what it is that we want from parents, and then opening the door to find out what parents truly want from us. And so let's see here. I've got this little box popping up about the transcript. Okay, I'm gonna close that out so that you can see. So UDL research is based on empowering learners. So I would like you to take a moment in the chat, or you can write on the interactive slides without looking at any resources. What is the difference between engagement and empowerment? And this just gives us a chance to pause for a moment as we think about universal design for learning in the context of parent and family engagement. So what is the difference between engagement and empowerment? Go ahead and type your answers in the chat or on the interactive slides, judgment free. And I'll pop over to the interactive slides. Take about 2 minutes to reflect, and then we'll jump back in. About 30 seconds. Thank you all for your engagement. Keep them coming. Thank you all. I'm just going to honor just a few voices here on the interactive slides and a few from the chat. Engagement is active involvement, and empowerment is providing the tools and techniques to an individual so they are able to fully engage at their own comfort level and understanding. Being an active participant in learning is engagement. Being encouraged to have an authentic voice is empowerment. Thank you. Engagement benefits families who have resources to know hidden rules, whereas empowerment communicates to families that they are already partners. Thank you. Empowerment means having some choices. Engagement means you are following along with what is provided. Thank you so much. Empowerment means being actively involved, to participate, and motivated to learn. And so as you read through the answers, and I just want you to, if there is a comment in the chat, please feel free to affirm the voices of the others who are sharing today. It is so wonderful to hear from each of you your own definition of engagement and empowerment. And so as we go through, I want you to think about your own thoughts about engagement and empowerment. Think about what your practices have been. Have you been engaging parents? Have you been empowering families? And have you how can you think about expanding the two? And so when we think about universal design for learning, and I'm going to put it back on present. When we think about universal design for learning, of course, the goal is to create expert learners, but we also must admit to parents that we are expert learners on a journey as well. And our journey of learning, as we move out of the way and bring more opportunities to learn more about the families that we serve, that we become students, not only of our learner, but we become students of the family, of the culture, what they're willing to share with us, how they're willing to teach us. When we acknowledge families as experts, expert partners on the development of their child, on the hopes and dreams they have for their child, then we can become adequate partners in this journey. And so what if we empowered parents as expert learners with universal design for learning, that we admit to them that we are learning alongside them, and then we empower them to learn alongside us? What if? And so why do I lean toward universal design for learning? UDL cultivates talent, confidence, and competence in all learners. When we identify ourselves as learners as well, then we find ways to use our talent to express our learning and find confidence, even in areas where we struggle, but we find competence along the way. UDL presents an attainable picture of success. We are not looking for perfection. We are striving to become expert learners, and our youngest learners get to see themselves as successful every single day. Deb Delisle, who used to be the superintendent of a district close by here, but she ultimately became the Secretary of Education, the Assistant Secretary of Education for the United States a number of years ago, would say, every student, every day, some success, some way. Every student gets to become the picture of success for themselves first, and then to others. And UDL demystifies success for all learners. So when we think about engagement, as we move into that empowerment zone, I want to just unpack this spectrum of engagement that was created by Phil Schlechte of the Schlechte Center. And if you were in session 2, we used a Schlechte Center images of school chart that we'll use again today. But it's about attention and commitment. So the highest level of engagement is high attention and high commitment. This is something of value to me, and I want to pay attention to it. So there's strategic compliance, where there is high attention, but a really low commitment. Ritual compliance, which is low attention and low commitment. I won't cause any trouble, but I'm really not interested, but I won't pull the attention away. And then there's retreatism, where there is no attention and no commitment. I'm out to lunch, I'm daydreaming, but I'm here. And last but not least, there's rebellion. My attention is elsewhere, regardless of where you want it, and I am not committed at all, and I'm going to let you know that with my action. And so when we think about behaviors in the early childhood setting, they let us know that we have not earned the attention and commitment, or we have earned the attention and commitment, and then any place along the spectrum. So I'm going to show you some pictures, and I'm going to ask you to do like a close reading without words. I want you to look at the pictures, and then I would like you to gauge where you believe the engagement level falls, and we can talk about it in terms of color. So take a look at this picture. I want you to think about this person here that is standing with the arms folded. There's a speaker on stage. The person is on stage with them. I want you to look closely. What do you see in this picture that will reveal maybe the level of engagement? Go ahead and just type in the color, or you can put in the word that you think describes this the person with the arms folded, their level of engagement. You can go ahead and type that in the chat. We have blue, someone said yellow. Tell me what you see that helps you to come up with your answer. Blue, frown, folded arms, maybe retreatism or rebellion. Arms crossed, watching the speaker. Looks like he's there because he has to be. His body language tells us that he's angry. It's the stance, maybe it's confusion, arms crossed, but paying attention, absolutely. Thinking heavily, some gestures. So we can learn a lot just by looking at maybe the stance. And in order for us to know truly where the individual is, we have to be able to listen. We have to watch a little more closely. So I want you to take a look at this one. I want you to take a look at this person that is here. What level of engagement is this person who is sitting at the desk with the hat on? What color? And tell me what you see in this picture that would let you know. We have red, orange. What do you see that lets you know it's red or orange? Head is down. Diverted attention. No eye contact, maybe doing something else. Head down, body turned. Maybe retreatism. Device, body turned on, looks busy, okay? And so sometimes looking busy can be mistaken for high attention and commitment. Sometimes it can be mistaken for rebellion or diverted attention. And so some questions that Kate is asking is it related to what he's working on? Okay. I want to have you look at one more picture. And I would like you to take a look at the smiles on the face. I want you to look at this individual here, the parent in this situation. What level of engagement do you see here? And tell me what you see that gives you some clues. Lots of greens. What do you see? Mirrored body language, both working on a shared task, smiles. They're both laughing, hands-on, working together. Green or yellow? We have green, smiles, collaboration, they're happy, close proximity, cooking, having fun as they walk together. Veronica said this is a picture of engagement all the way. And so as we take a look at these pictures, we take a look at, I'm just gonna go back really quickly. We take a look at maybe retreatism or rebellion. We take a look at maybe someone who's present, but their attention is low and their commitment is low. And then we look at engagement and what it looks like. And even if the attention is high and commitment is high, even if a learner is frustrated, when they're engaged, they're willing to stay in the task. And these two are working together as partners on whatever it is. We don't know what the outcome is. But what if we empowered parents as expert learners with UDL? How do we see parents? And so when we took a look at the images of school chart last week, we saw this guiding metaphor that if school is a prison, then parents are distrusted visitors. If school is a warehouse, then parents are just primary shippers and receivers. Listen, drop them off to us. Don't tell us what to do, and then just pick them back up. So it's just shipping and receiving. If school is a factory, then parents just supply source and they determine if the product quality is good or not. So we're like, hey, here's a survey. How are we doing? And that's really all we want from you. And then just bring us the kids. That's it. That's a factory. And so a professional service delivery organization, the parent is seen as a guarantor and a questionable ally. So maybe you're with us, maybe you're not, but we just the core business is diagnosis, prescription, and treatment. It's intervention. That's it. We just figure out what's wrong with you, and then we give you something. And so in a learning organization, though, parents are partners and members of the school community. The student is seen as a volunteer and a knowledge worker, meaning that they have some say in how they approach the work and what they do. And then as a learning organization, our core business is designing engaging academic work for students and leading them to success in that work. Our core business is not just our business, it is shared business with the members of the school community and parents as full partners. I want you to take a moment and just evaluate your school district, your school, maybe your classroom. How have you treated parents? With what have you trusted them to do? Go ahead and you can move the dot and drag it to just where have you seen parents, or maybe you can type in the chat, it's up to you. How have you viewed parents? And I'll give you about a minute just to reflect on that, judgment free. I'm gonna pop over to the interactive slides and we'll be able to see as a community where we are. And you can see we're all in different places, judgment free. Take about 30 seconds. About 10 seconds. And so just thank you for taking the time to reflect on where you are and ultimately to reflect on where you want to be when we think about how do we design experiences, design instruction, design partnership for parents to be empowered as partner in designing engaging academic work for students and then leading them to success in that work, that together we do that. And so when we think about expert learners being empowered through UDL, we can think about this multiple means of representation. And when we are designing parental involvement, are we using multiple means of representation? And we'll talk about this in 4 different areas, but are you, when you are communicating with parents or asking for information from them, do you account for multiple means of representation? Do you give parents different ways to see information? Is it flexible for seeing, hearing, movement, or touch for parents? Or are we sending home newsletters one way, print, and hoping that someone reads them? Are we using language and symbols? Are we giving parents the words that we use in school to empower them to maybe partner with us, or asking them for how do you communicate that it's time to stop and move on at home? Can we use the same language? Are we sharing our understanding that's created by pictures, multiple media, symbols, various structures, support structures? One of my friends is an intervention specialist, and she had a system of communicating when it was time to end a section of learning and move on to another. And it worked really well for one of her students. And so she, the parent heard about this, her son was telling her about when it's time to move on, we move this to this, and they had this system that worked really well. The teacher was contacted by the parent, and the parent asked the teacher, can you come to my home and help me set this up, because I have a hard time when we're playing and it's time for play to end and we move to bedtime, but you have something that really works. And the teacher went to the home, helped her set up the system, and they used the same system at home and at school to end one time and move into another. And that way it wasn't confusing for the student. The child knew that on the same page, literally from home to school, the same language, the same pictures, the same systems were shared as a support structure. Are we able to do that? And even if we send home a video of how we set it up, if we are not comfortable with home visits, I know that everyone wouldn't be, but if we sent home a video with how to set it up or what's working, or we invited a video into our classroom for what's working well, this is multiple means of representation for the purpose of building a bridge from barrier to benefit, from home to school and back. And then multiple means of representation, meaning that we are supplying background knowledge, not assuming that every parent would know the background for maybe a story we read or an activity that we do, but we send home multiple ways that the parents can take in that information, which then puts them in the driver's seat to help the child. And it takes the teacher out of the authority position for all things learning, and it places the parents in the driver's seat. And so for multiple means of representation, are we giving multiple ways to guide this transfer of information, to supply background knowledge where maybe there is not, and to invite the background knowledge in where there is? So multiple means of engagement. Are we sparking excitement and curiosity for learning, not just with our students, but with their families, by giving choice and autonomy on how to attempt homework? Are we minimizing threats and distractions? Are we asking what is threatening and what is distracting for the families? Are we giving ways for families to tackle challenge with focus and determination, maybe customizing the goal or various outcome methods, emphasizing process, effort, and improvement? Are we giving the parents the opportunity to provide mastery-oriented feedback to the learner? Have you thought about teaching parents how we give feedback and then learning from them how they give feedback? It gives you ideas on their culture, on the background, on where parents are comfortable or uncomfortable, and gives us a common language to speak when partnering for the education of the child. And then we harness the power of emotions. We don't shun emotions, but we bring in the power of emotions for motivation for learning. So we're asking, what do you do when you're frustrated, parents? How do you help your child when they get frustrated? What do you do when you're frustrated yourself? What do you want to learn more about? And then how can we help you self-assess where you are? How can you help us assess where we are? How can we reflect together? I see some great ideas in the chat. And so with multiple means of expression, what are the multiple ways that we can truly partner with parents to take action, and not just simply asking them what they want to see, but bringing them into that design process? And there is an action sheet that will be a part of the Padlet. We'll make sure that that gets uploaded today or tomorrow so that you can ask your parents what they need and then provide that opportunity for them to give you information on how to meet their needs, and then give them opportunities to share with you on how to partner best with them. And so when we think about variability is our strength. Not every family unit is going to be the same. There are different family dynamics. And so I just want to take some time as you start to design for yourself and think about what tools that we'll use in these 4 areas that we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. What are some ways that parents and families are different? Go ahead and type that into the chat or on the interactive slide. What are some ways that families are different? What are some different dynamics of family? Take about 2 minutes to reflect. Culturally, of course, diversity. Some families work, some don't. Maybe different experiences, educational backgrounds, different beliefs, authoritative versus cooperative. Thank you. Cultural difference, understandings different in education, maybe rigid parenting styles, language barriers, economic differences, flexible work settings. Some have inflexible work settings. Some are more hands-on, some are more hands-off. Immigration status, maybe some families are divorced. Trauma history, how they define families or family members. All of these are differences. Foster families, who they call family, extended family, and who's included. Absolutely. The languages that they speak, the makeup of the family, economic, religion, culture, Some have parents who are deployed, absolutely, in the armed forces. There are many ways that families are different. And so I want you to think about even the differences that have been listed. How do these differences impact their engagement with schools and with teachers? Granny is mommy. Yes, that's how I grew up. And so how does that impact how they can engage with schools and teachers? Sometimes there's a level of distrust. Sometimes they're just in survival mode. Sometimes there's just a disconnect in expectation. We don't know what to expect. There's no context. Sometimes, and we talked about the barriers at the beginning, from barriers to benefits. And so now we're going to just talk a little bit about homework. When we think about universal design for learning, through the lens of building relationship with families, we have to remix homework. We have to think about what it is that we're expecting families to do during the time that they're coming together. And so think about some of those barriers for trust, barriers of time, of culture. And so homework can be a time where, as we design, it invites home into school. So think about how you can remix homework a bit. Think about what you can send home to support parents who may not know the topics, who may feel uncomfortable just by the notion of being from school. And so this is where we get to mix it up a bit. We get to think about how we can use multiple means of representation in our homework. Are you empowering families with Google Translate, so that if language is a barrier, that they'll always have a way to get to the meat of it? Are you sending home a video, and maybe that's closed caption, that gives parents a little bit of a synopsis on, hey, here's 3 questions that you can ask your student today, and just send us a text message or an email with what their responses are, and that is the homework. And that puts the parent in the driver's seat. Here's the right answers, and you ask the child will think, how did you know what I did today in school? And you're literally placing them in the driver's seat to be the expert learner in front of their child, which gives them a bridge to the benefits. And so think about how you can structure homework with multiple means of representation, with multiple means of action and expression, with multiple means of engagement. How can you support parents while requiring homework? I love the ideas in the chat. Think about newsletters. What are some ways that you can use multiple means of representation in newsletters? And I want to hear from you all on this one. We'll pause here. How can you use multiple means of representation, maybe action and expression, multiple means of engagement in newsletters? And so I'll give you just a moment there, and then we'll talk about some ideas. Video news, absolutely. Read 10 minutes daily, split up the type of homework, charts and graphs, electronic newsletters with hyperlinks, resources, videos, so that there are choices there. Take photos of what children did at school, send home with an explanation on how they were learning. A picture of the child captures the parents' attentions. Interview parents, interview guest speakers, and use multiple ways to capture this learning. Maybe it's video, maybe it's song, maybe it's poetry, maybe it's dance, it's captioned. And so parents can choose maybe to use a screen reader, maybe using Dojo or some other app that pops up in their phone so they don't have to go in and look. It saves them time. Maybe having an audio option that they can listen to while driving to and from or going from work to home. And so student developed content. So it's not just up to the teacher, but it's inviting student developed content, and maybe even having a parent corner where a parent can share information with other parents as an expert, places them in the driver's seat, and then they'll always look for that parent corner to see who else is an expert in your eyes. Parent-teacher conferences with multiple means of representation, student-led, with pictures, with videos, with poems, with a student showing what they've learned. Maybe before the conference, asking parents, what do you want to know most about your child from this quarter? Sending home a list of topics that you've covered, and then tailoring the conference to what the parent wants to know more about. This means that the parent is not just engaged, but empowered to give us an assignment, give us their leadership, and then we get a chance to respond. And then multiple times a day, multiple formats, not just coming in, but maybe video chat or with a video with two-way dialogue, multiple ways for parents to really conference with us based on what they're interested in and what they want. Empathy interviews and parent conferences to learn more about parent and family perspective. And we also have parent programs. So how can you begin to create programs that really meet the needs of parents? In the district where I work, we really remixed parent programming. And instead of doing programs where parents just come and sit and then sign off so that their student can get a chance to participate in whatever the incentive is, we always made sure that students were performing at any parent program we had. And then we had 2-generational programming so that parents and families could participate alongside each other, and it was made for multiple age experiences. We had a gentleman named Jungle Terry come in, and he had the animals, and normally just the children would participate. Well, he talked about the ecosystems, he talked about the background, he talked about the habitats, but parents were right alongside, learning, answering questions, petting the animals, because it placed the parent in the driver's seat to learn about the ecosystems and the habitats that they would learn right alongside their student, and then have some extension activities that they could lead because they participated fully in the instruction. Another activity that we did for a program was we had in our early childhood program, we had parents and families come together with their students, and we offered the program at 3 different times. One was in the morning, one was around the lunch hour, so if a parent could take off, and one was in the evening. And parents could pick and choose what time they wanted to come, but they sat side by side with their student and created a memory. So it was a time for the parent to tell their child a story, a memory, either from their own childhood or from their child's early days. And so we had a student there, and it took everything within me not to cry. She was 4 years old, and her mother and father were not together anymore, but they agreed to come to this program, and they began to tell her the stories of when she was first born and what happened during those days. And it was the first time that her mother and her father were at the program together with her. And she listened to the stories. You could see the joy in her eyes. And they took the time to draw some pictures and capture some words. And each family contributed to an anthology that we published. That is a gift that each child will have for as long as they keep that. And then we have it on hand at the school district. So we have programs that puts the parent in the driver's seat. And so if you're using this video for professional development, I just invite you to jigsaw or create a poster to remix your traditional family engagement practices. I want you to think about 1 or 2 examples of how you might change this practice, like if it's homework or if it's newsletters, how you could change this with multiple means of representation, engagement, and expression. I want you to think about how you can include graphics, visuals, poetry, and songs to support your remix of tradition. And then take about 8 minutes to just share your remix with colleagues. How can you do this differently? And so today, as we've heard, we walked through a number of different things. I would like you to think about what seed idea would you like to take back to your school, to your early childhood settings to grow. So take about 1 minute to reflect, and then we will end with a small video. So what seed would you like to take back to your early childhood setting, your school, your program to grow? Take a few more seconds to just reflect there. I see that Veronica has her hand raised. Would you like to share your question? All right, so we had some learning goals at the beginning of the session to identify obstacles. Did we do that? Did we identify maybe dreams for parental involvement? Did you get a chance to build that bridge from theory to practice? Did you get a chance to maybe even come up with maybe one idea or a seed that you can take back with you? At the beginning of the session, I promised that I would tell you how Cardi B helped a school district to strengthen home to school collaboration. And we had some parents asking us, these were parents of 3rd through 5th graders asking how they could help support their children's writing efforts. And so they came together, spent a day brainstorming with their child on how to write a paragraph and what they would need to be reminded of to be successful, and then recorded it in a song. And so I'm going to share this with you. I just want to make sure that these little buttons are pressed so that you can hear. And here we go.
DJ Fetty Banks.
Bang. Bang. And who else?
J.E. on the button. J.E. on the button.
Check me out, write a paragraph if I wanted to. I am smart, I'm intelligent, I'm successful too. When I write a paragraph, I indent before I move. I'm a boss when I pre-write, organize, and bust a move. Hey, topic sentences now, this content is new. Read details, follow up, just to make it plain for you. If I end it, I don't close, I know that will never do. My conclusion ties it all up, now you can do it too. You write a what? Got a topic too. I can't wait to read. Details please, try to make it broad but more specifically. Instead of trees, tell me if it's oak or if it's silverbird. About jobs, mention what it is, don't just say you work. Pre-write first, organize your lines, details at the start. Make sure there's no tender sentences, so then break apart. You can use a graphic organizer, that might do the trick. Fill in circles with some details for the topic that you pick.
So I won't go on because I know that we are at the end of our session, but the parents, the board members, the teachers, the students came together to find out how to remind themselves and use their gifts and their talents and what they knew to teach them and remind them of what they did not know. And so this is involvement. This is partnership. This is family. This is a bridge from where we are to where we want to be with UDL for families. Thank you so much. And I'll stick around a little longer if there's questions.
Thank you so much, Andratesha. And I can't wait to go back to watch that video, the whole video. It's amazing. And so appreciate all of the suggestions that we learned from you today and the suggestions of participants in the chat. I learned a lot of new ideas. So thank you for being with us. And we look forward to seeing you at, sadly, our last session on Thursday, December 16th from 3 to 4 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.